Hello and welcome everyone to this week's episode of the podcast. This week we are talking about one of my favorite subjects, which is money, and another favorite subject, which is jewelry training. And actually, we've been asked this question quite a few times over the years and quite a few times recently, which is how much should you spend on your jewelry training? Is there a number? Is there a minimum or a maximum? At what point do you become a jeweler who is trained? I know that we all have such different journeys and such different stories. Some people are completely self taught. Some people have done degree programs. Some people are just starting their journey and thinking, what should I do? So, this is what we're going to be talking through today. And we're also going to be having a look at, for those of you that are perhaps interested in doing jewelry training, either with us or elsewhere, and perhaps interested in doing a jewelry diploma, because that's something we've been talking about a lot at the moment, but money could potentially be holding you back. This is an opportunity to have a look at how we can remove that block. So, how can we finance a diploma in jewelry if it's something we've decided that we want to do? So, I'm joined today by Anna Campbell, who is our community manager. I'm sure she needs no introduction, but Anna is here to have a chat with me and with us about this topic to do with, I think it combines a lot of things. It combines money, it combines training, it combines ambition, it combines fear. And we've all gone through different journeys with these kind of things. So, Anna, thank you so much for joining me on the session today.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's a really interesting conversation. We've had, as you said, we've had lots of people talking and asking us about it. So it felt like a really good topic to talk about on the podcast because of that. And yes, I agree. There's just so many different facets to the decisions, that we're making around our future, but our jewelry training particularly. So yeah, be good to get into it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So maybe we can start a little bit around the question of how much should you spend on your jewelry training, which I think is a really interesting question and kind of a funny one. I was reflecting on how much I've spent. I mean, I combine jewelry and business because I train in both things, and other things too, but they're my main sort of been my main interests. And I'm scared to think how much I've spent. I feel like it's been maybe over £100,000 over the years, but it's been, a couple of decades, and it's normally been in chunks. So, like the first training I did, I was thinking back to that, and it was around £5,000. And at the time, I was 19, so that was so much money. I was like, this is a huge risk, and I remember just falling in love with jewelry making, but not knowing how to make it, but just knowing that's what I wanted to do. Seeing this course and thinking I could do this. Like I could go and I could do this and I could learn and I think I could, make something from it. But I think it's really scary, or it can be really scary early on, because my biggest fear was, what if I'm not good at it, or I don't like it, and then I've wasted that money. That was it was almost like fear of a little bit of judgment from others, but mostly of judgment from myself, of like, oh, you just wasted like so much money. um, but of course, and I remember actually speaking to my mum about it at the time. She was so supportive, which was really helpful. And I was like, I really want to do this program. I really think it's my thing, but I'm scared about the amount of money. And she said, well, people train in degrees for years and spend 30,000 just on the course fees, plus accommodation, plus, interest, like student loans. And she also said something which I thought was quite interesting, this idea of, how do you expect to be really good at something without investing in it? And I was like, yeah, I mean, I don't. I don't know how to do this stuff. Obviously, I'd read some books and I'd like sort of looked at some things where I was like, I may imagine learning from someone who knows. I'll get there so much quicker, and I really wanted to move forward. So that was all I needed. And then I was like, okay, I kind of got permission, and it felt like from a good source. And luckily I did know that it was something that I wanted to do. And luckily it did kind of work out. But I don't know about you, Anna, if you had like an initial experience of, that taking those first steps, or perhaps the first big investment you made in yourself, and how that felt for you.
Yeah, I mean, Similar in a lot of ways. I was working full time, and I went to the London Jewellery School, and I discovered metal clay and absolutely loved it. And then I would kind of travel quite a long way to see metal clay tutors, because a lot of them were here, there, and everywhere. And so, it was not just the cost of the course, which was, a substantial thing, but there was also the travel, accommodation, all of that. I kind of had to add in and add on. And I think for me, what I found was, I if I really had a kind of, I don't know, there's something in me that was like, this feels like the right direction. I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't really know why I'm going in this direction, but this feels like the next thing for me to learn. And I think if we can just trust that, it's like you don't necessarily know where it's, like you said at 19, you didn't know where it was going to lead. But there was something that was like, "Yeah, I really want to do this. And there's something here that I really want to follow up." And being able to learn from those experts. And I was fortunate that I was actually able to travel at that time, because not everyone can. And in some countries you don't have that possibility around, or maybe you just, you don't have the finances to go and move somewhere to do a degree. It just doesn't make sense. So I think that's for me one of the great things about, we're going to talk about the diploma, but one of the great things about the diploma is that it can be done from anywhere. You don't have to quit the day job. I mean, when this is pre all of my jewelry making, there was a course that I was so interested in, and every year I got the prospectus and I would like look at it and go, "Oh, it's so much money." And then the next year I got the prospectus again, and it had gone up in price, and I still wanted to do it. And this was like mid 2000s, and it was 10K, and I did it because I kept that. The third year I got the prospectus, I'm like, look, this isn't going away. I'm just gonna do it.
Mm,
And I did, like you were talking about, I didn't have the money. I just didn't have it, but I kind of committed. I was like, look, this is really important to me somehow, or somewhere, somehow, and I'm just going to find the way, and I'm going to do it. And it did move me forward. So I think whatever happens, you're going to move forward, because I think that staying in the same place is already also a decision that we
mm.
make.
Yeah,
I
it
think
could be
sometimes
good.
we feel like we just, if we don't move, then nothing. But we still kind of can feel ourselves behind if we don't. Sorry.
Mm. No, yeah, it's almost like an unconscious decision, isn't it? And I think in the end that's more scary. Is not, they say we regret the things we don't do more than the things that we do do. And I think that's so true. Like I'd rather take the risk and try something and sometimes, quote unquote fail, if that's even a thing. Um but I was reflecting and I was thinking, I haven't regretted any of the training that I've done.
No.
I've never done training and thought, shouldn't have done that. Shouldn't have developed myself in that way. Like, even if it's not, and I love what you shared about not necessarily having a plan. Like, I almost every time I'm doing training, I have no idea why I'm doing it. It's just
Yeah.
like with you, it's like a pull. It's like a, I want to. It's like a, this
Yeah.
feels right. This feels good. And I think it's feeding a passion inside. And when that passion gets fed, you just never know where it can take you, but it's going to take you somewhere good. And I think, yeah, it's an incredible feeling to invest in yourself. And I think it's almost more incredible when it's been really a struggle, because you have to overcome something to get there. I remember I've shared with you before, Anna, and maybe on the podcast a long time ago, this one training course I signed up for. It was a business training course and it was like £15,000. So I was really not sure about it, but I loved the person who was delivering it. I loved what they were doing. I was so inspired. And I was like, do you know what? It's worth it. Like I'd committed to myself that if I signed up to it, I'd make the money back somehow. Signed up to it, didn't do any of it, which I found so strange. I was like, this is really unlike me. If I do something, I'm using it. It's an online course. Well, I wouldn't say I didn't do any of it, but I did a very small percentage of it. But even in the act of signing up and committing to the path they were talking about, something changed and I was ready to grow. And I was like, right, now I need to make that 15,000 and make more from it. And I've seen that with our diploma students where quite a few people have signed up not even having the amount for the whole course, because it's a year-long program. You don't have to have it all up front. There's payment plans, all these kind of things, and saying, well, I've got enough for this month, so I'm going to sign up this month and I'm going to use some faith. And of course, we don't want people to get into tricky situations, but there is these leaps of faith I feel like we've all had to take in order to move ourselves forward, or many of us have. And then sort of said, okay, how can I make enough jewelry this month that I can pay for next month, like making sale? And it's not a huge amount, might be a couple of pieces, but if I don't do it, like I have to do it. So invariably we do it. And sometimes I think people who struggle more with finding the money actually do better, because sometimes if we're more comfortable, we have it and it's not a big deal. It's like it's easier to jump out. Although I'm not saying that people do that, because lots of people just love it and go for it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That is very rare actually with this course. It's like people tend to stay the course and get the certification because of the way it's set up for lots of different reasons. But yeah, I love that. And I think one of the things when I was first starting out with jewelry making was I tried lots of different types of jewelry making, and I went and did lots of different classes in different places. And even the things where by the end of the day I was like, okay, that's not for me, was still important information for me to know. It was like, I really want to try this. And I also always feel like whatever we've learned, it always feeds into our creativity.
Mm,
You know, if we've learned this particular type of jewelry making and then this other particular type, just somehow, just those different ways of thinking and those things that we learn from those tutors, it just all comes together to make our own creativity a different thing.
mm.
I think that it's always going to be valuable.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think of it as like a form of energy. It's like, is somebody putting energy into you at the same time that you're putting energy into you? And it's like they come together and they like supercharge. And especially like, obviously, we'll have training at school as kids. And I think that's incredible as well. But that is to a certain extent forced. Like when I
Yeah.
take the kid to school and he's like, I want to stay home and play on computer games all day. And it's like, no, you must go and expand your brain. But I think what's amazing about jewelry making has been for me, and I'm sure for you, and for all of our students, is they really want to do it. And when somebody really wants to do it, and the teachers really want to teach, it's just this incredible energy that comes together, that it's not even just about making that piece anymore. Like, yes, of course, we will make the piece, but it is comes back again to that feeding the passion and just kind of really thinking, just getting inspired, I suppose, and encouraged. And then that really feeds into the business as well, which is why I always encourage people when they're running businesses to do jewelry training, and when they're making jewelry to do business training, because they, again, both kind of help each other. And that inspiration, or if people get stuck and say, oh, I've lost my mojo or I don't know where to start, if I get stuck, I just book a course. That's my go-to, and it always works because it's like you can relax because someone else is going to guide you and kind of give you that support. So love that. So then, okay, so I think we're kind of saying there's an indefinite amount that you can spend on your jewelry training. My advice would be to spend money on it every year for sure. Like it doesn't matter where, but if you're a jeweler and you want to be a jeweler, every year we should be doing continuing professional development. And to me, that's just like great because I love the courses. Obviously, if something happens one year you can't, that's absolutely fine. But generally, like, why wouldn't you want to develop your skills? Why wouldn't you want to learn new things? Why wouldn't you want to come up with new designs and offer more to your clients? I think there doesn't have to be an end to it. And the thing about jewelry is it's such a big broad industry that there's so much to learn. You can never get to the point where you say, I've completed jewelry. Done, I've learned it all. So for me, it's kind of open-ended.
Mm.
Yeah.
I love that. And I think as well, when you think, for many people who maybe, if they've got their day job or whatever it might be, they will, in lots of different industries, there's a kind of expectation that you do continuing professional development, and that with some places you have to do a certain number of hours and all of that kind of stuff. So it's very much an ingrained part of that. And I think you're right. We can learn a jewelry skill and kind of master that skill. But what if we want to be a more rounded jeweler and we want to kind of offer more? learning more skills, learning new techniques, learning how to use different metals, maybe whatever that might look like for you and where you want to go with your career, is so super important. And I think that that's, yeah, it is important to have that thought of like, what am I going to do this year?
Mm.
What's my investment this year?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. We both do that, don't we? We're like, this is the course I'm doing this year. Like, share it. And it's
Yep.
like, oh, wow, you're doing that. That's so cool. And, it doesn't have to cost loads, but it doesn't matter if it does, because I think that the more you spend is the more you'll be encouraged to make. And they talk about this idea a lot in online courses of this. It's this idea of that if you pay for a course, you pay attention to the course. And we do a lot of free courses, and I think that's great, especially to make it accessible to people, because there are some people in different parts of the world where it's just not accessible, unfortunately, to spend out on training at this stage. So I think that's a great thing, but I do think there's something in this investing in ourselves, which is so important. It builds self-esteem, it builds our relationship with ourselves, because what we're saying is, I believe in you, like, you are worth spending money on, and I know that you're going to do something good with this, and I'm not quite sure what it's going to be yet, but I have the faith. So it's a little bit, again, coming back to that leap of faith. So maybe we can talk a bit about the diplomas and just some practical things for if someone's thinking, okay, yes, I do want to do one, or a masterclass, or whatever it is that's next on your list, or even the foundation course, but money is kind of feeling prohibitive to me. What can people do? Any thoughts?
Well, I think that is one of the reasons we have the payment plans, for the diplomas, particularly because we do know that and I've been working and looking at a lot of different courses, and a lot of times people charge quite a lot more to spread the cost, and we don't do that. We have it, and the cost is the cost. So if you can pay in full, fantastic. But if you want to spread the cost, there isn't a penalty for doing that. And I have to say, there have been some courses that I've wanted to do and looked at, and they're like £1,000 more if you spread the cost or something like that. And it puts me off because it's like, oh, I could pay for it if I could spread the cost, but I just feel like I'm being I'm being taken advantage of. Anyway, that's me. So that's what I think. I think the fact that there's a payment plan, right now, as of this conversation going live, we have an 18-month payment plan available. Um, that's there really to help people spread that cost. And I think I love that the thing you talked about around, and I know a few of our jeweler friends have done it, of like, right, here's my challenge. I need to sell this amount to make back that cost that I've got. And I think that's such a great challenge. I think it's a really nice way of then framing it, rather than being like, oh no, I've got to find the money. It's like, okay, how do I make this a game? How do I make this fun?
Mm.
um I think that's a really great way of looking at it.
Absolutely. And it helps get your business off to a good start, because I do think a little bit of pressure, gentle pressure, is good for us. So I agree. And that came from the students. That wasn't something we suggested initially, but people were doing it and telling us, and we were like, that's so cool. And trusting yourself, that even if some months are quieter, some months are busier, that you can do this. You've look at what you've done so far in your life. You can definitely do this. It's definitely achievable. Yeah, so selling your jewelry, I think that's the first thing, isn't it, that we kind of suggest to people if they say, I want to, but I'm nervous about the cost, or that seems to be holding them back, is look, you're making something that is of value, and we're working with precious metals, silver, gold, things that are constantly going up in price. So there is an inherent value in the things that you're creating. The real idea behind the diplomas is that you're learning the skills, but at the same time you're creating this portfolio of work. So if you're showing that as you go along, if you're showcasing that on social media, if you're promoting yourself, which we really encourage you to do at the same time as developing your making skills, people are going to start to ask for things. And we have this with diploma students. They're like, can I sell this piece? I need to put it in for marking. And we're like, yes, you can sell it. We'll send it back to you. So trusting that, that is a viable way to commit to a diploma, whatever level you're at, is to sell that either sell those pieces if you've not sold anything before, or those of you at higher levels saying, well, I'm going to sell this much on top of what I'm already selling, or I'm going to sell the same amount, I'm going to charge more for it. I'm going to increase my prices because my skill level has increased. So it's starting to embed that business cost, which is what these trainings are, into your pricing, and kind of, really kind of taking it seriously in that way. So that's been exciting to kind of see. The other idea, which we've seen some of our students do as well, is to destash. So we all have a lot of stuff at home, and it might be jewelry related or craft related. Hands up if anyone else has some craft cupboards, some bits and pieces that they invested in a few years ago and thought that they would spend every day doing and haven't. There are loads of Facebook groups and places where you can list things. And yes, each piece may not get loads of income, but it all adds up. And again, that's something that with a monthly payment plan, it's like, what do I need to destash this month? And that combined with the jewelry, if you're looking at something like £200, for example, it might be that you can destash 100, make 100, and you kind of, you're halfway there. I don't know if you've ever done any destashing, Anna, or bought anything from the destash groups.
Do you know what though? It's so interesting. I've got a whole bag full of scrap silver, and I have never in all the years ever sold the scrap. So for those who don't necessarily know, is that as you mentioned, silver and gold has its own value. And as a teacher of metal clay, I've got lots and lots and lots of samples and bits and pieces that I've made over the years. And I kind of cull my samples because I just end up with too many. And I've just got this bag. I really need to send it off and get that back. And the more I can hold on to it, the more value it's got, to be honest. So I haven't done this actually, but I'll have to report back on how much my bag of silver was worth, because I've got no idea.
Yeah.
But if you're similar to me and you've been working for a little while and you've got all of these things, or maybe you've done beading and now you're not going to be doing so much beading anymore, and you've got lots of lovely. We're all lovely hoarders, I think. It's just the nature of us. I also almost think of it as like you're kind of passing it on to the person who's going to appreciate it. There's no point it gathering dust in a cupboard and it's not going to get used. So it's a really nice thing, as well as getting some money back for it, to be passing that on and for it to have a new life.
Absolutely. And that's just jewelry making and craft supplies. But, we all have clothes, we all have all sorts of things. Like if we went through our cupboards, and, it does take a bit of time. But I think it's so much easier nowadays with stuff like Facebook Marketplace and Vinted and all these kind of places where you can just list things. And, it is a little bit of a time commitment for sure to do the, talking to people and stuff like that. But if it's a little bit each month, or a little like, oh, I'll spend one day each month kind of going through it, or a couple of hours here and there, I think it's just opening up our minds and saying, like, there are possibilities. Like, how much do I want this thing? And am I willing to kind of put some effort into it and maybe make some sacrifices in other areas? And I know for me, I was just like, this is my main focus now. This is what I want. And I'm willing to take risks, and I'm willing to try things. And it's okay if it doesn't work, because we have no guarantees, and I think that's something that can hold me back, as well as being like, am I 100% certain? It's like, of course not. I'm not 100% certain about anything. Like, there's nothing that's certain, in this world. So it's just like, well, does it, like you said, does it feel like the right next step for you? And I think if it does, that's the sign. That's enough. So we've got selling your jewelry, we've got destashing. Next up on the list was, is there something in your life currently that you could sacrifice? So this one always hurts a little bit more, because so far we've been talking about creating money, but saving is also a way. So is there anything, and I try and do this once a year, is kind of run through my bank statements, run through my finances and say, are there any expenses going out that I'm not even really aware of, or things that I signed up to that actually I'm not really using anymore, or even things that I like, but I don't like as much as this? Like, is there anything that could be sacrificed, whether it's like a club or a subscription, or, maybe listening to Spotify with the ads, or whatever it is? are there any little things that can be changed while you're going through a training program, um, in order to invest, in order to hopefully grow your income so that this is less of an issue in future? Yeah, I don't know if you've ever gone through this process, Anna, ever had moments in your life where you're like, what can I reduce so that I can make room for more?
Yeah, I think it is a really a good thing to do anyway. It's a good strategy to look at because a lot of times I'm thinking about different subscriptions for things that I might have, and I've been like, oh yeah, this I really need this, and then an annual subscription is about to come out, and I go, oh, need to make sure I've cancelled that. So it's a really good thing to look at. But yeah, I think sometimes, we're looking at like past us and what we thought we would be doing, and maybe you look at it and go, oh, okay, actually I don't need Kindle Unlimited, or I'm not watching Netflix or Disney or whichever one of the ones you've got. Like it's about thinking about like where do I want to invest my hard-earned money, really.
Mm.
um and I think, yeah, it's a good thing to look at every now and then.
And it doesn't have to be forever, like you said. Like we go through different phases, don't we? And sometimes there might be a period where you're super into watching loads of movies and you sign up to all of the things, and then you're like, okay, I'm kind of, I'd rather spend my evenings making jewelry now, so I want to invest in tools and training, and then that might change, destashing, and then so it's yeah, I think it is a good kind of annual thing to have a look at and just check in. Is my energy, because that's what money is it going in the places that I want it to come back? Like, am I investing in the things that I want? And also just opening again, a lot of this is about opening up and being like, it is possible. There are possibilities, even for me, even for anyone. Um, there are small changes that we could make. And even if it's not a diploma, like even if it's the foundation course or a starting point, um, how can we make that first step? How can we move forward and not let money stop us from doing what we want to do, basically? Because it's meant to be the opposite. It's meant to be a tool to help us do more of the things that we want in the world. So sometimes it's a bit of a mindset adjustment as well as a practical one. Um, Awesome. Okay, so we have a couple more suggestions. Hope you're jotting them down if you're these are things that are helpful to you. So the next one is asking for help. And one way you can do this with Jewelers Academy is to ask your friends and family to get you gift vouchers so that you can contribute those towards your payment plans, towards your tools, your materials, whatever it is. I mean, with us, it's the training, but I think that it shouldn't be underestimated the support that people around you can give. And it doesn't necessarily mean saying, can you pay for my jewelry diploma? Maybe sometimes somebody can. But it might just be like, oh, instead of spending £30 on a random gift for my birthday that I don't really need, could you put that money, like, could you give me the money and then I can put it towards this program? So I think, again, it's thinking a little bit outside the box. People want to help you achieve what you want. They want you to be happy. The people that love you and care about you, they want good things for you. They want to support what you're doing. But sometimes we can be a bit shy and not tell people, and just, especially around gift giving, there's a lot that goes into gift giving, gift receiving. And I think there can be things like expectations, guilt, all these things can come up. But it's lovely. And I know in my family, if someone says, oh, I really want to do this, can anyone help? Family WhatsApp groups, whatever it is that you guys have, however you communicate, friendship circles, and just saying, if it's Christmas, if it's birthdays, a special occasion, um, how can they help you to achieve those goals? And again, I've seen a number of diploma students who couldn't afford to do what they did, and they did have help from friends and family. And I think that's amazing because, again, it just shows that they're supporting their dreams, they believe in them, and they know that it's an investment they're going to make that back. So yeah, that's always a nice one.
Yeah, I think that's an important one. I see it. I mean, particularly I'm teaching at this time of year, a lot of people getting gift vouchers for Christmas and then coming to one of my workshops. And I think what's lovely is that a lot of people are kind of saying, look, I don't need more stuff. I already have stuff. I don't need bath salts and socks, the basic kinds of presents, but actually, um this is important to me. A gift, you could get a gift voucher, or
Mm.
I can put the money towards something. I think that's important. And I think another thing we can ask our friends and family and is to say, look, I'm making jewelry. I would really love to make things for you, for gifts, like for you to give to other people. So just remembering that your friends and family are a great source of your first customers, um, who can support you in terms of saying, yes, I need to I need to get something for my niece, could you make some earrings? That's going to give you some support, like financial support, but also it's going to give you some experience as well. So I think there's a few different ways we can ask people for help.
Mm.
um, and yeah, that they will be pleased to help you with.
I love that. It's such a good reminder. And you're right. Sometimes people just need to be asked because they can be shy. So even though it's obvious that I make jewelry and so I'd like my friends and family to buy it from me, sometimes people don't, they feel a bit unsure about, are they ready for orders? Is it, they're going to feel uncomfortable? So I think when you can be a bit vulnerable and say, this is something I'm really like giving a good go at. I love doing it. Like, I'd love your help. People love to be asked for help. It's nice. It shows you trust them. It shows you want to connect with them. And just say, if you know anyone, yeah, or if you want anything, like I would just love to kind of help with that. And you never know where it could lead to. So you're right. I know it's a huge part of starting a business is being bold and brave and sharing it with people around us. And
Yeah.
even if
And
it's not,
also,
yeah,
yeah.
sorry.
No, I was just going to say, and price it properly. No mates rates. So
Don't-
many people when they first start out are say, they'll just do it for the cost of the materials, things like that. Your friends really should be paying more. That's what I think. They want to help you and they want to support you, and I think it is important to be charging correctly for what you're giving as well. So yeah, put
Yes,
that
the
out there
problem with mates rates as
too.
well, they tend to be ongoing. So you never know how long that person may be your customer for. So it can be tricky. But you can definitely do jewelry in exchange for things, like
Yeah.
especially in your first year, if you know a photographer and they're happy to take your pictures and you can make them a
Yes.
piece, or you can be like, can you pay my diploma installment this month and I'll make you a piece. So it's all about communication, isn't it? And being open and honest about where you're at, what you'd like, and then seeing what people can offer. So you're not alone. You're not alone in the world. Awesome. Okay, so we've had selling your jewelry, de-stashing, looking at anything we could sacrifice or put on the back burner for a bit, asking for support, gift vouchers from family and friends. I think the next thing is really understanding and seeing and treating it as a business expense. So
Yeah.
it's not something that you're buying just for yourself. It can go through your business. It's tax deductible. So for a lot of you guys, especially those of you that are working full time, that are paying plenty of taxes, like this is a huge saving in terms of training for your business. And yeah, that's awesome. Because tax can be a big thing. It can take a lot of income for some people. And I personally believe in taxes. I think they're a good thing, that if we have more money that we can contribute more, but it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt when it leaves the account. And so knowing that as part of your business, this is a cost. So any money that you make in your business or money that you make elsewhere can be offset against that. Means overall it's not as a bigger cost as it may initially seem, which I think can't be underestimated.
Yeah, I think that is an important one that a lot of people, especially if they're first starting out, don't really know about and don't think about. And I'm not a tax expert, so I'm not going to share anything like that. But I do know that when I was buying equipment like my kiln and things like that, I was able to offset that in a later year. Um, so again, depends on what country you live in and accounts and all of that kind of stuff. But it can be something. It's a kind of an ongoing business expense, isn't it? When we invest in our training.
Yes. Yeah, my understanding of it, and again, check it out, but I'm pretty like sure this is true, is that if your training is directly related to your business, so if you're a jeweler and you're doing jewelry training, it's tax deductible. But if you decide to do like skydiving training, it's not. So it needs to be
Yeah.
directly like your trade. But luckily for us, it is. So yeah, train away, train away. Um, and then I think the final thing, I mean, there's so many things we could go on and on, but the final thing we were kind of brainstorming about before we were chatting on here is this idea of just making a decision. Because I think, when it comes to money, when it comes to stuff like this, there's the practical side of it, the maths, the adding, the plans. That's really important. That's a really important element. But I don't believe that money is purely just about maths. I believe there's an energetic side to it. And I think that there is a little bit of where there's a will, there's a way comes in, that when you commit to something and you really commit to it in your heart and you say, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I just know that this is what I'm going to do. And it comes back again to that trust and that believing and that kind of taking those risks a little bit and it's like, I'm going through this very much with the new jewelry school in Brighton. It's like, we just build this whole big training center and hope that it works out. But that's kind of what we have to keep doing in life and in business, is to go after what we want, not because it's definitely the right decision or it's definitely going to be financially a good decision or anything definite, but because it feels right and we're following our intuition, we're listening to ourselves. And I think, again, that comes back for me to this idea of having a good relationship with yourself, of respecting yourself, enjoying being with yourself. Because, there's a little part of you that's like, I want to do this. And if another part is always like, no, it might be, it might not go well, you can start to build resentments towards yourself of like, oh, I wish I'd done that. I wish I'd if only, those regrets. So I think that, yeah, for me, I mean, I have this naturally in my personality, and I think you do a bit too, Anna, maybe a lot. So it's maybe easier sometimes than in other situations, but just making that decision and committing to it and trusting that you will find a way. And what's the
Mm.
worst that could happen?
Yeah, definitely. I think fear, we know in our head, is like really loud and a bit shouty and very judgmental. But intuition is a kind of like a quiet knowing. It's like, okay, you can be shouting away, but I know this is the right direction. I've no idea why, but it just is. And I think if we can kind of just come back to that, it's like, what is it? Is that there? Is there something in you that's like, yeah, this is the direction. I don't know where this direction is, but this is the direction. This is where I want to go. I think it's just so important not to put that off.
Mm,
Like I said, I put off doing one course, and it just kept going up and up and up in price. And it was 3 years later before I actually even started it, and would have finished it by that time as well, because I had that fear. I was like, this is just too much. I can't do this.
mm,
But I could do it, and I did do it, and it did move me somewhere completely new. The end. I think as well, a lot of these things make sense in hindsight, don't they? When you're looking back on it and you're like, oh, okay, I see the journey I've taken. But when we're looking forwards, it's really hard for us to see, like, what does this make sense? This is what I want to do. I don't know quite why it makes sense, but it will eventually. So I think it's about really thinking back to our intuition and not letting that fear stop us from doing those things that are going to move us in the right direction. That's the
mhm.
key.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're here to support you guys, of course, and with tons of training. So there's no excuse. And yeah, I hope that it's been helpful to kind of talk through some of these ideas. I'd love to know your thoughts as well. And if any of you are thinking about signing up for a diploma or any of our programs and money is the reason why you're not, please get in touch because we'd love to hear from you and perhaps support you through that. But hopefully, we've given you some ideas today. And I think what it always comes down to for me when people say, like, should I join this course? Shouldn't I? Is I just say, what do you want to do? Which sounds really simple, but it's forget about anything else, the fear, the finances, all those things. Of course, we will come back to look at the practicalities, but the most important thing is knowing what you want. And I know for me, it's never hard to know that I want to do jewelry training. And I'm always doing it. Last year, I actually did loads of training and it was so fun. I went to various different places all around the country. I did some really cool stone setting courses. I went up to visit Scott in Glasgow for a week and stayed there and did 5 days of stone setting there. So I'm really passionate about stone setting at the moment. So that's kind of the thing that I'm interested in learning and developing. And not everything's perfect, and I don't do everything perfectly well, and I don't practice everything straight away, even though I promised myself I will at the time. But it's all part of that journey, isn't it, of developing. And I know this year I'll be doing more training, and I know next year I'll be doing more training. And it's to me, it's like the lifeblood of my creativity and my business. And it always pays off, not always straight away, but in the long run, it pays off in so many different areas of my life. And which is why I'm so passionate about what we do and helping to provide that for other people and seeing, as a teacher, it's amazing as well. We've not talked about that side of it, but it's also incredible to see your students really grow and develop and have those sort of life-changing experiences too. So, Anna, thank you so much for coming and sharing about this topic with us today. I will put a link in the show notes to our 4 diploma programs, which you guys can choose from. Enrollment is open at the moment. The 18-month payment plan does end on the 7th of March, which is swiftly coming up. So if you're thinking about doing any of those, like sell your jewelry as you go along, destashing things, it's going to be a lot less pressure on an 18-month timeline. Then it goes down to 12 months. And we're just kind of excited to get making with you guys. We also have the masterclasses on at the moment. And if you're brand new to jewelry making and you want to just dip your toe in, foundation's a really good place to start. But if there's ever anything we can help you with, our goal here is to help you develop your making skills and develop your jewelry businesses so you know where to get in touch. So thanks again, Anna. Any last thoughts before we sign off for today?
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm just really excited to see who joins us this year and to see what they get to make. So yeah,
Mm.
I hope you take the plunge.
Yes. Awesome. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Explore all the courses you're going to do this year. It will cheer you up, I'm sure. And we'll see you back here next week for another episode very soon.